going on a solo vacation had been a weighted dream of mine. I envisioned disconnecting from the world and immersing myself in the embrace of nature and getting some alone time, if I'm being honest. I discovered an Airbnb listing that felt like it was taken out of my bucket list. An isolated cabin nestled in the Oregon woods, covered with greenery, and not a house in sight, not too far from the coast, yet secluded enough to offer the solitude I was looking for. It seemed like the perfect Airbnb retreat, at least at first glance. I had a 7-hour drive ahead of me, so I pulled out Google Maps and looked at stops along the way to break it up. The journey to the cabin was uneventful, with scenic views unfolding, as urban landscapes gave way to tranquil scenes of nature. Upon reaching my destination, the Airbnb matched its description perfectly. A wooden cottage surrounded by a sea of trees with no neighbor in sight for miles. The initial day was bliss. I wandered through nature, lost myself in books by the crackling fireplace with some coffee, and savored the absence of city clamor. The quietude provided solace to my spirit, and that night I drifted off to sleep, feeling more at peace than I had in ages. Yet, this sense of tranquility proved fleeting. During the night, an unsettling feeling crept over me that refused to dissipate. It started with sounds outside, rustling leaves and snapping twigs, as if someone or something was prowling around the cabin perimeter. I tried to reassure myself that it was local wildlife exploring the thick forests of Oregon, intrigued by a new face in the area. However, a sense of unease persisted, serving as a reminder of my solitude far from anyone who could offer assistance. By the evening, my uneasiness escalated into fear. It was then that I caught sight of him, a figure outlined against the moonlit forest backdrop. A man standing at the edge of the property, gazing intently at the house with binoculars. Questions flooded my mind. Who was he? What the hell did he want? Was this the owner just making sure someone made it there safely? The isolation I had welcomed now felt like a confinement. I secured all doors and windows in an attempt to secure the place. My anxiety was going through the roof. I didn't get much sleep that night, as you can imagine. I called the owner the next day, but no answer. The next night brought his return. This time, he approached boldly, testing doorknobs and tapping on windows around the house, trying to peek in. As I looked through the glass, his unkempt appearance and intense gaze were unmistakable. Panic gripped me, only to be met with a yet distant voice from the operator, stating that police assistance would take hours to arrive. In that moment, I realized I was truly alone in this situation. I had nobody and nothing to protect me. He didn't make it back the following night. The message was clear. He had the option to return, and perhaps next time he would succeed. I couldn't sleep. I spent the night wandering from room to room, avoiding windows, startled by every noise. By morning, I was a wreck, my nerves on edge, feeling a loss of security. Determined not to endure another night, I made the decision to leave at dawn. Packing was chaotic. I didn't care about leaving things. All that mattered was getting away. Stepping outside the morning felt eerie, with tree shadows appearing to conceal dangers. Rushing to my car, I tossed my luggage inside without glancing back at the place that had transformed from a dream into a nightmare. As I drove off, my hands trembled on the wheel. Something was off. My tire had been deflated. I drove anyways. The retreat I had imagined had turned into an experience, a stark reminder of how quickly solitude can expose one's vulnerabilities. Upon reaching a town, I reported the incident to the local police. However, their response was disappointingly lackadaisical. Instances similar to mine, as they mentioned, were common. Individuals wandering through the forest, some harmless, while others harboring malicious intentions, aiming to frighten or steal from unsuspecting tourists. Upon reflecting on my encounter, I now realize my naivety. Venturing into seclusion without assessing the potential risks left me vulnerable to unforeseen dangers. The woods, despite their allure, conceal secrets and perils that are far less forgiving than the urban setting I am accustomed to. Initially, yearning for solitude to escape the chaos of city life, I stumbled upon something more ominous. This incident has profoundly impacted me, reshaping my views on solitude and security. The desire for isolation has been replaced by an appreciation for human presence. By sharing my narrative, I hope it serves as an anecdote for those seeking solace in seclusion. Nature, while a realm of beauty and peace, can also be a stage where our deepest fears materialize, particularly when we are most vulnerable. Our quest for a peaceful getaway led us to discover a charming Airbnb hidden in the dense forests of Vermont. The renovated barn, with its rustic charm and the promise of seclusion, appeared to be the ideal escape from the busy urban life. Excited for some time off, my partner and I were captivated by its secluded setting and the tranquility it offered. Little did we know, our anticipated retreat would soon transform into an eerie experience that would stay with us forever. The barn was just as idyllic as it looked online, a peaceful sanctuary surrounded by vast woodland. Our first night was heavenly, with the forest's quietness standing in sharp contrast to the city's constant noise we had grown accustomed to. But as morning broke on a new day, the serenity we had felt started to unravel bit by bit. The fog rolled in, and we settled in the living room for the evening. It all began with minor, inexplicable incidents that we dismissed as quirks of an old building settling into place. Our food supplies began disappearing, objects went missing, and a persistent, unpleasant smell hung in the air. We are talking the worst smelling body odor imaginable, covered up with the smell of a bad air diffuser, trying to mask the smell. It would come and go, and we could not find out where it was stemming from. A blend of damp earth mixed with something unsettlingly unnatural. We joked about ghosts in an attempt to shake off the unease that slowly crept over us. However, our amusement soon turned into apprehension as each night passed. We woke up to the sound of movement coming from above, a place we thought was inaccessible and off limits, the owners said. The realization made us shiver. The air filled with the strong smell of body odor, a clear indication of another person's presence. It felt intrusive, emphasizing our fear that we were not the only ones there. Determined to find out what was causing our unease, we spent days exploring the area around us, hoping for some explanation to calm our nerves. However, each time we returned to the barn, our anxiety only grew. More food went missing. Our personal items were disturbed, and the smell became overwhelming. A constant reminder that an unseen intruder was sharing our space. I set up my iPhone one time when we were running into town to see if we could catch anything or see what was taking our food. We went into town for a nice dinner and couple glasses of wine, maybe one too many. When we had come back, I was so out of it, I had completely forgot to even check my phone's time lapse. I just jumped onto Instagram, posting the day's photos from our trip. Our fear peaked on the final night. The noises above us became louder and more frantic. Fueled by terror and a desperate need for answers, we stumbled upon a hidden trapdoor that led to a small attic space above us. We knew the owner said it was off limits, but we just had to check. Inside, we discovered a makeshift shelter. Someone had been living just feet away from us in secret, maybe, using our supplies and watching us from above through cracks in the floorboards, we thought. But nobody was there. The realization that we had been under surveillance in such an intimate and alarming way left us horrified, still not sure if we were being watched. We gathered our things quietly in the middle of the night, feeling trapped in the once comforting barn. Our escape was hurried and filled with fear and disbelief as we fled from what seemed like a nightmare unfolding before us. As we tried to make sense of it all, we didn't really have any answers. A month had passed. A viral news story surfaced, revealing incidents of a homeless man discovered living in the attics of unsuspecting Airbnb guests. To our shock, our cozy barn was mentioned as one of the locations, confirming our worst fears. The idea that we had unknowingly shared our deepest, most private moments with a stranger lurking, maybe even being filmed by someone unseen, was deeply unsettling, shaking our trust and sense of security to the core. I was scrolling through my photos the day after telling my coworker the story. I remembered we had filmed the living room that night. As my coworker and I watched the video, I instantly got goosebumps as an old, white, bearded man poked his head out from the ceiling and crept down the stairs. He then began eating our food, shoving things in his pockets, and proceeded to go to my suitcase, grabbing my most personal things, licking and smelling them. My skin turned ice cold. I was humiliated, violated, and scared beyond belief. I began to cry at work and called my husband to have him watch the video. There was nothing I could do. To this day, I warn everyone about getting a rental home. So many scary things can happen, and the unknown causes me anxiety daily. Please be careful